running with our theme of the left and their destructive nature. And I hope I'm bringing this to some people's attention that may not know it. Because I do talk to some people about this. When I was on the campaign trail, I was talking to people, they had no idea this was happening. There was a cross put outside the Minnesota Capitol. It was destroyed almost immediately. And they have a little sign that they left, all out of F's, switching to bricks. Here's a cross. They couldn't let it stand. And they also took the 10 Commandments.
Nice.
This is happening in our state in Minnesota. You can't even be tolerant of a religion you may not agree with, but you don't have any kind of tolerance for it whatsoever. So again, when you don't like something, destroy it and then call the other people fascists. Well, it just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. And that's what, we're back to the Bloomington police chief. What he was talking about is we need leaders to stand up and do something about it.
Right.
You can't just have Walls ignoring it just because he doesn't, just because he believes in it. There is a rule of law. People need to follow the rules. Not just incite his domestic terrorists.
Right. It would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So one of the other topics is when you're talking about U of M, here's a great thing. I think both of us found this today. 2,100 U of M employees earn more than the governor of this state. And if you go down to the top 100, they're still making $354,000 a year. There's over 100 that make 354, or that's the 100th. So the above that is 354 or above in salary. Right. 2,100 people at the U of M making more than the governor, who makes $127,000 a year. That's not nothing. And that's kind of indicative of where the money is spent on the U. A lot of stuff that doesn't need to be spent, a lot of funding should be cut back from that. And the things that if the Minnesota people are going to be funding anything, core curriculum. After that, at the university, there could be some very specific majors done that are helpful to the benefit of the people. And then after that, it has to be privately funded by the people that go there.
Well, you can't pay that kind of money and then call it a nonprofit.
Yeah, that's true.
If they can afford to pay that kind of money, then they need to, then they don't need this government money. They can go to a profit. They can get rid of the 501c. They become a for-profit company, and then they can pay whatever they want.
Right.
But if they're taking state money, it should be state rules, and the state rules say that that's way too much money to be making.
Yeah, and we even talked about this, I think, a couple of days ago, and we put the benchmark for the governor's salary as being, if you're a nonprofit, you shouldn't be making more than the governor of the state makes.
Correct. At least, for the last I heard, 56,000 was the state median income. So anything over 56,000, the governor's making double that,
right?
Well over double that. So, you could say one and a half of that. So say 75,000 for a nonprofit.
Yeah, and here you found this one. Minnesota Food Bank CEO, $721,000 salary. That seems like it could feed a lot of people.
Right.
I got to show this comment. This is pretty funny. I guarantee if you go down the rat hole of nonprofit funding, you'll have blood pressure problems. I had to stop looking last month when Doge was IDing them with Data Republican. Yeah. Not just nonprofits, NGOs. And you know what? Correct. If your NGO goes out of business because the government stops funding you, you are not an NGO. You are a GO, right?
Correct.
So this is crazy. $721,000 for how do you live with yourself with that? right?
Yeah, how do you justify yourself on a nonprofit to make that kind of money?
Right. Exactly. Your job as a nonprofit is not to make a profit for, as a company, but still, there's got to be some correlation to the salaries being paid out to those people too.
Right. Otherwise, lose your nonprofit status.
Right. Okay. We're going to continue on with Minnesota, but we're going to talk about the light rail or the train theoretically coming to Duluth from Minneapolis. And I have some good news that something I ran on when I was running. Ooh, wait. There it is.
Yeah.
State Republicans want to nix funds for the train between Duluth and Twin Cities. Why do they want to do that? Well, because a few things. Number one, the funding from the federal government is not a sure thing anymore, for sure. Number two, notoriously, these things take a lot more money than they say they're going to, and they take a lot more time. And then the third one is they don't make money. They don't even break even. They're a sinkhole, kind of like the Minnesota Aquarium here.
Yep.
So it's good to see. The supporters say the Northern Lights Express could be transformative, and I believe that's true. They're going to dump as many people from Minneapolis as they can up here and just repopulate this area. We will not be able to accept that many people. They'll put as many lowlifes as they can on those trains and ship them up as fast as they can.
Right.
And I've said that consistently for a couple of years, and I'll stand by that. When I lived in Minneapolis, the lowlifes from Detroit and Chicago used to come to Minneapolis to prey on the people in Minnesota. Now they're kind of ingrained and staying up there. Now they're looking for new places to go. And in northern Minnesota, it's sure easy going. So I wish them well. I hope they can do that.
And luckily, we have in part of the Duluth news at the last city council meeting for Duluth, they approved $18,648 to go towards their payment to support that Minnesota. Yeah. So even though
more of our tax money going for that, specifically from us.
Even though they, pretty sure that it won't happen, they're just going to keep spending. They'll just raise taxes if it's not enough.
Oh yeah, and speaking of which, let's just look in on California. How you doing? Oh, need another $7 billion. Another $7 billion. They're way over budget. They're way behind schedule. And I know this is a little different for the one they're talking about here because they want to use existing train tracks, but they have to solidify those tracks. They have to do upgrades to them to do the speed. And they say, well, it's going to get you from Minneapolis to Duluth in 2.5 hours for $35. We can do that today on the existing infrastructure. Why do we need the train?
Right.
And if we stop getting the demand, we can shutter those buses. They don't have to make the run. The train has to go back and forth because it's the only thing that's there.
Yeah, I can drive my car for less gas, and then when I get down there, I have a car to use. I don't have to spend more money to rent a car.
It better not be a Tesla. It might be on fire by the time you get it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Washington State Railroad keyword boondoggle RTA. We'll have to take a look at that. I mean, I've talked about the one that's in Hawaii. We've talked about the one that's in California. They're never what they say they are. And so here's a side item. I found this today, and I was kind of chuckling. It's kind of sad. It's got two things in one. So there's a Minnesota House bill they want to have to provide opiate antagonists on college campuses. So this is an anti-opiate pill or spray or something that can save you if you have opioids. Because apparently we have a lot of odor noticing happening on our college campuses. And, that should be happening. But I found it much more interesting. So Gabbert, so Emma Gabbert, student body president, Metro State University. She has to administer Narcan, the branded version of now. Oh God, I'm going to look like an idiot because I can't say these words. Naloxone. 2 years ago on the light rail, a man was suffering from an overdose and a fellow passenger had Narcan with them. I was able to administer that in CPR. The person came back to life, so I'm here as an advocate. 2 years ago on the light rail, a man was suffering from an overdose. Yep, that's what's happening on the light rail. That's real, that's now, and that's been that way for a long time. So I found that kind of funny that, first of all, make sure you do these mandates to the schools that they have to have this on premises. And then secondly, I have experience in the light rail having to administer this because, somebody OD'd on it, which happens.
Yeah. So if that's part of the requirement to qualify to get onto the light rail is how to administer Narcan.
Right. Yes. What's your qualifications for this job as a barista? I can serve coffee and do Narcan.